All right, everybody, this is Pat Dennis with Synaptic Advisory Partners, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Youreka, and specifically we're going to be talking about what we mean when we discuss offline data capture and what offline capabilities Youreka has to offer. So let's jump right into it. First of all, for those of you that are not familiar with who we are, Youreka is a Salesforce-native forms application, and so what that means is we allow users to go out into the field, collect information, fill out a form, an inspection, an assessment, an audit on their mobile device, and then have that information mapped back to Salesforce. We come as a mobile-first application, which means that everything that we do is designed around enabling that mobile workforce to filling out their information while in the field. We support both online and offline data capture, so it doesn't matter if your device is connected to the internet or if it's not. You are able to A user is able to collect all this information on their mobile app and then sync it back to Salesforce. And then finally, we're offering folks a guided experience. So we're giving people not just a static form, but a form that kind of bends and molds based on the answers to certain questions, allowing us to guide users through a specific process as they're completing this information. So today I want to talk specifically about the offline capabilities that Youreka has to offer. And to do that, we're going to go through an example use case. So we're going to pretend as though I'm responsible for conducting an inspection on a job site out in the field. And while I'm out in the field, I need to be able to do the following things. I need to be able to review some existing information about this job site, maybe the customer's name or some other data points. And then also I need to be able to enter some basic information about what I'm seeing. So answer some questions, record some information, all as a part of this inspection. I might need to be able to collect photos or generate PDFs of what I'm collecting. And then the answers also need to be able to be highly complex and support dependencies in these different forms that we're filling out. We might need to be able to collect e-signatures, and then ultimately all this needs to be offline enabled. So I need to be able to collect all this information and do all of these things without connecting to the internet. So that's what we're going to go through today. The demo flow that I'm going to show you is we're going to begin inside of Salesforce, and then we're going to open up the Youreka mobile app on my iPhone. We're going to complete an inspection without internet connectivity, and then when we come back online, we're going to push the data back to Salesforce and then review those records and kind of see where everything landed in the system. So with that said, I'm going to move over into my Salesforce environment and kind of show you around, get us oriented around what you're going to see today, and then we'll do the inspection. So on the left-hand side of the screen, what you see is my Salesforce org, where we have some basic information, some demo information presented to us. And then on the right-hand side, you see my iPhone that has the Youreka mobile app pulled up. To begin, I want to show you just an example. We have a couple of different records here that are audit records inside of Salesforce. Youreka works with any kind of object that you might have, but in this case, I have a custom object called audits. And we're going to go into this audit record here, which shows us some basic information about the audit that we're going to be conducting today. So we see the date of the audit, the status, and the name of the audit, which in this case is going to be a work at Heights. And then we also have the form record that is part of the Youreka technology that we're showing you today. This is the actual form that our inspector is going to be filling out while they're on site. And what's great about Youreka is that the form records that are created in Salesforce are then represented on the mobile app for our users who are about to go inside of the field. So what I'm going to do now is draw your attention over to the right-hand side where we have the Youreka mobile app pulled up while we go on site. So just as a quick reminder, this is just the Youreka app, which is accessible on iOS or Android devices. And we've just got it pulled up here as an example of the audit that I need to be conducting today. So before we jump into the audit, I do want to remove internet connectivity from my device. And so there's a couple of different ways we could do that. I could go into airplane mode, which would remove connection to Wi-Fi or any data plan that my phone has. I could also just leave internet connectivity as a part of exiting wherever the data coverage or my connections coverage is offered. So if I go into a dead zone, then mobile device, and the Youreka application will recognize that we've gone into a place with no connectivity. But the third way, and the way that I'm going to show you today, is that I can manually toggle off internet connectivity in the right-hand corner there. So you see there's a little toggle on the right-hand side. I'm going to switch us into offline mode. There's a couple reasons why we have this feature here, but primarily it's because a lot of our customers have said that they like to be able to have complete control over when their device is online or offline. In the event that they're going into low connectivity or no connectivity situations, they want to be able to manually switch what level of connectivity their device has at that point in time. So I'm going to switch us into offline mode, and then we're going to jump into our inspection. So the first thing that we see here as opening up this particular form is that it is pre-populated with some basic information from the audit. So we can see here the name of the customer that we're going to see, Logan Corporation. We can see the inspection date as it's been pre-populated from Salesforce. And then we can also see a brief description of the audit. These are just fields that we're pulling into the form from that audit record. Now, what I can do is if I want to make changes to these fields, I can certainly do that right here. So maybe we'll just say that this is instead a Work at Heights inspection. There could be any sort of updates to any fields that we want to do, but just for the sake of the demo today, I'm going to change that word there, and we'll watch it reflected back in Salesforce later when we come back online. So at this point, I'm just going to go through my inspection, and we'll answer some basic questions about what we're seeing on the job site. So again, this is a Work at Heights audit, so we're just kind of checking over to make sure that things like scaffolding are compliant, that ladders are compliant, that we have all the safety equipment necessary while we're on site based on maybe regulations or certain policies that we need to be complying with. Now, what's great about this is that, and there's a completely separate demo video that shows you all the different Youreka features that we have to offer, but things like conditional display logic are going to support our user as we go through the entire audit here. But I'm just going to answer some of these questions so that we can get to talking more about offline capabilities. So I'm just going to fill all this stuff out. We're going to answer each question here, and then we'll completely finish the audit by saying something like, things went well, please pass along for review. And then we'll change the audit status to complete, and then finally create a task for ourselves by clicking that plus sign at the bottom. And we'll just say that, follow up tomorrow is what we want to do. We'll make the due date tomorrow, and then we'll also make the owner me in the system. And then we'll say that this is a high priority task and that it has not been started yet. Now what we're going to do is we're just simply going to click submit on this form. But remember, we've done all of this without internet connection. So what Youreka is going to do is, because it understands whether or not it's connected, in this case, because we're offline, it's going to present the user with some just a basic warning about our sync status. So in this case, we've surrounded the form here with a light orange banner, or with a light orange border, and then added a banner here that says that the form is still waiting to sync, which means we haven't updated the audit record back in the system. The form is still incomplete as far as we're concerned back in Salesforce. But when it's time for us to go back online, maybe we've arrived back at the office, we found Wi-Fi connectivity, we can toggle that switch off, and it's going to save all that information back to Salesforce automatically for us. And it's at this point that we're updating reports and dashboards, firing off email automation, updating records, etc. This is kind of where we come to the power of the platform. So let's go into Salesforce, and we'll just quickly refresh our page here and see what happened. So I'm going to click refresh, and when I do so, what we'll see is a brand new Salesforce, or a Salesforce record that's just been updated. We can see that the status of this audit has now been moved to complete because my auditor in the field indicated it so. We've also changed the description, right? So it used to say Work at Heights Audit. It now says Work at Heights Inspection. And so we can see we've updated some information right here. We also have queued off a little bit of Salesforce automation that is calculating the amount of times that we said no in this case, passing that over here as the number of exceptions, as well as writing some of the comments from our auditor too. Additionally, we've added a little alert up here that says that an audit is passed and that a team member has just completed an inspection for Logan Corporation. So that could have been an email alert or a Salesforce notification that alerts somebody, perhaps a manager on the team, that this work has been completed. And then finally, we can jump into the form here and we can actually see all the different information that was collected while on site. So as I scroll down here, we can see all the answers to every single question, including if we collected photos or captured e-signatures. All this stuff has been collected even in an offline state. We even have the task that was created at the very end of the form to follow up tomorrow as a high priority task that sits here inside the Salesforce as well. So this is what it looks like. This is an example of what it looks like to be offline, to collect information, to complete an audit or an inspection, and then when we come back online, we can push it all back to Salesforce very seamlessly. Now quickly, what I'm going to show you is how we can actually put these forms together, make some changes, and get these forms out to our employees in the field so that they can go back offline with a new version of the form. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to go into my Form Templates tab where we can see a list of all the form templates that I currently have in my environment. I'm going to jump into the Work at Heights audit right here. And we can see some basic information about that template and all the forms that were filled out with this version. But I'm going to create a brand new version here, which allows us to add some new questions. Maybe a business process has changed, and we have additional information we want our inspectors to collect out in the field. So what I'm opening now, this is what you can see when you open up the template builder inside of Youreka. Again, we're still inside of Salesforce, which is the benefit of the Youreka being a native application. But what we can see here is now we can edit and drag new questions onto the canvas so as we're designing a brand new form here. So what I'm going to do is call this 1.2, and we'll click OK. And we'll add some additional questions here to our inspection. So I'm going to drag a question on here, and the first thing that I'm going to ask is, are there people on site? And we can open up the question type here, and this allows us to pick whatever data point we want and whatever type of information we're going to be collecting. But I'm going to call this a yes/no question, and then I'm going to save it. And then the second question that I'm going to add here is, how many people were there, approximately? So we'll say approximately how many people were on site when you, or we'll just say on site. And then we'll have this be a numerical field, so we'll add a number here. And then I only want to show this when people are saying that I only want to show this when my inspector indicates that there were people on site. If there weren't, then it's not important for this question to be asked. So we're going to use the Display Logic tab up here. And when we click on that, we can then select whether or not this question is always visible or if it's just sometimes visible. And so here we'll say, are there people on site? When the answer is yes, I want to show this question about how many people there are. If the answer is no, then we're going to hide the question. We can come up to the Preview tab here, which is going to show us the ability, or it's going to allow us to kind of understand whether or not our conditional visibility is working. So there we can just check and say, are there people on site? If yes, then great, how many? If no, then we won't ask the question. We can also preview what this form will look like both on a phone or on a tablet, which is really helpful to understand what our users will be seeing in the field on a mobile application. So at this point, we'll click Save, and then we'll actually publish this form for our users to be able to use out in the field. So by clicking the gear icon in the top right-hand corner, we'll click Publish. And now we're ready to go and fill out these forms. Now very quickly, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disable the first version so that we won't be having older versions being used in the field. We're only going to have this latest version applicable. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump back over and sync on my mobile application on the right-hand side. And if I'm somebody in the field who needs to fill out another audit or inspection form, I can open up a form here and be able to just immediately jump into a record and fill out the information with the new version. So it was that fast that I was able to apply and deploy a brand new version of a particular audit or inspection form. Now I can fill this one out offline as well. So if I go back into offline mode, what I'm capable of doing is now we're filling out this brand new version of the template in an offline state. And I can still enter some basic information about whether or not this is still at Logan Corporation. This is us utilizing lookups offline. We can enter the date that we are inspecting, and then we'll say Work at Heights again. Maybe we had to reinspect. There's our additional question. Are there people on site, yes or no? So we can say maybe this time we saw that there were 10 people. And then we'll continue on with the exact same questions that we had before by filling out all the basic information, collecting photos, collecting e-signatures, etc. And now we're doing really well on this audit. We'll say went really well, and that's all. And we'll say that this audit has been completed. submit that form back to Salesforce, and again, there we can see that, that it has yet to sync because we're still in an offline state. But when we find internet connectivity, we will switch we will toggle back online, and only then will we be pushed back to Salesforce. And at this point, we're syncing with the system, we're firing off system automation, making updates, making edits to records inside of the system. So there's a couple of things that I want to show you as a part of this process. So when we talk about going offline, there's a couple of technical notes that I want to make sure that are understood. So the first thing is, a lot of questions that we get are, how does Youreka reference information in Salesforce records offline? And the answer is through offline priming. We're actually priming records to the Youreka application so that we can make references to them without connection. The second question that we get a lot is, how do administrators make it easy for mobile users to have offline data? So how can I make sure that they have all the data that they need? And the answer to that is that we have a mobile administration menu inside of the Youreka app in Salesforce, and I'll show you that here briefly. And then the final thing is, how does Youreka sync information when it comes back online? And the answer is that we're intelligently syncing back and forth. So when Youreka understands that connectivity has then been reestablished, the mobile application will sync information back and forth seamlessly. So very quickly, I do want to show you what it looks like to prime data offline and use our mobile administration menu, because this is really what's controlling our ability to update information in Salesforce while we're offline. So on the right-hand side, what we're seeing here is we can open up a menu in the Youreka app and click on Data Management. And this is some basic information about what is currently synced to the mobile application on the device. And it's going to show us things like templates and which forms are synced, etc. But then finally, we can see which object records have been synced to the device as well. This is what gives us the ability to leverage lookups and update information while offline, is that we have all these objects primed. Now what I can do is simply click Prep for offline, and this is actually going to grab all the data from the environment for all these objects and make sure that we're up to date. So it takes just a quick minute to sync, but then after we're complete, we know that we have everything primed on the device so that we can go ahead with our work offline. Now, from the Salesforce side of things, as an administrator, I can actually define which objects are being primed. And the way that I can do that is I can go to my app launcher here and type in the phrase mobile admin. And when I go to this tab inside of Salesforce, what happens is I can actually see all the different objects that we have decided are going to be primed on Youreka's mobile devices for this particular environment. So you can see here at the top, we have all these objects currently being primed to our users' devices. And then below, we can actually select additional objects that we might want primed. So if I want to start adding campaign member or any other custom objects or standard objects, we can simply click this button here, and that is what controls which objects are being synced to the devices. One final note that I'll say is we have a release coming up very soon. At the time that you're watching this, it actually might already be out. But what's great about this release is that we're actually adding additional controls and criteria-based logic that will allow you to control for each of these objects which types of records do I want primed. And what this is going to do is it just gives the administrators more control over how much data is being synced down to the mobile application for each of the users. And by adding the additional control here, we're able to optimize data storage on the devices, as well as just control who has access to what records while they're working in the Youreka mobile application. So there's quite a bit of flexibility that's offered in terms of administering data down to the Youreka application. And that flexibility is going to be continued to be advanced through newer releases in the upcoming months and years. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But hopefully this has been a helpful demonstration to give you some more information around how Youreka works in an offline state.